Hmm. Yep. I think we have started. Okay. Hello, everyone. How have you been? It's been some time since I spoke, right? It's been a lot of time, and I don't know why I stopped, right? Because the last time I made a video, I think it must be months. Probably I started. I think November. I think October. Somewhere around that time when I got mad when I had my uh, how would I say it? It's not something like a ego dissolution or something like that, but it's just that feeling to express myself, to actually speak what I really want to speak, because it's been some time since I've been watching a lot of things, and since because what happens now, I have realized this even this time when I did not put anything on the YouTube. I only made one video, try to explain what I am trying to do with my videos, what I'm trying to explore myself, what I am trying to put out in the world, because it's not really okay. I'll try to like lay out what my thought process is about expressing yourself, about putting yourself out, about sharing things right with people, about saying what you really believe, about saying what you really feel like a grip, right? Something that you really, I would not say believe, but in something that you even act out, right? So there are multiple layers and layers and layers that I could talk, and I really want to talk about that. And I don't know why I stopped it, as I already told you, but maybe it's something, maybe because I thought, this might take a lot of my time, and I how would I manage all of these things, and is it even feasible, is it even am I even like at that stage to say things, because uh people might say that like obviously I'm fucking what, 24 or 25, 24, right? So I don't have that much of knowledge or that much of wisdom or that much of things to say to people or to anyone, like even to me to actually formulate an idea, to formulate an opinion, to formulate a thought process, and to actually think about that in a very deeply manner, and to actually implement it, and to actually see how that works in real life. It's one fucking challenge, because you know you have not, like, as I told you, I'm like 24, right? So it's not like that I have lived a lot of my life. I have lived a big life or a long life. I have just maybe started to think about and started being aware of myself, to know what's really happening, and to actually formulate a philosophy, let's say, of how to live my life, and what are the different ideas that people live their life. And it's been like, let's say, you get some awareness maybe at 90, maybe at 20, maybe at 18, I don't know. It depends on your, let's say, your childhood, your, you know how early, or maybe like it depends on your parenting as well, to some level. It depends on your connections with people, maybe your integration with your tradition, maybe your assimilation in some sense with the knowledge of the tradition, the system, the culture, like how cultivated you are in some sense, how systemized, let's say, right? So all of these things actually try to make a part of your experiences, a part of your identity, let's say, or part of yourself, let's say, right? On all these things actually uh, make a component, or make a integral part of your awareness of yourself and the world around you and the environment that you participate every day, every moment, right? So all of these things in some sense make you aware of where you are going, what do you want to do, what are your desires, should you even have desires, right? And so all of these things actually come up to that point. So let's say, as I told you, I'm just 24, so I don't know really much to say, but I still have something to say, like, because life keeps on happening, life keeps on going, right? Even when you're fucking 20, you can say something, and It's not obviously very authentic part of you, because you're just a 20 and you don't know a thing, you don't know a shit, right? How to live life, how to say things, how to communicate, how to interact, how to make relations, how to approach life, how to set goals, uh, how to lead a good life or something like that. All these, like, because life is a one fucking complex, I would not say a game, but it's like, I don't know, it's like a multi-layered phenomena, like it's happening all at the same time. It's like at every single level there is like multiple, there's like infinite uh, variations that are taking place, right? And you don't know, but still, like, people, like, uh, in some sense live with what they possess, right? At 20 you have limited set of skills, knowledge, you live your life according to that, and you try to, I would not say compete, but obviously there's a competition going on, there's something, you're a part of a structure, you're part of a hierarchy, you have a age group, you have your peers, you have your friends, and you see where you are and how you're doing among your friends. You also not compare in some sense, but see yourself where you were maybe 2 years, 3 years in your school, and now you're in your college, and you see this trajectory. It could be a downhill trajectory, it could be an uphill trajectory, it could be a a sine wave or something like that. It's like complex and complex and complex to a multiple layer, as I told you before, right? So even at 24, 25, 26, these are the maybe the time of your life where you actually enter that part. Adulthood is that part where you actually understand life, and where you actually can think about life and see what really life is up to, like what you can see the phenomenon taking place right in front of you. You can see why what life is, because you have just entered that stage where a lot of things can happen in the next 6 years, in the next 5 years, in the next 4 years. Like, a whole, uh, you you're actually trying to build what you are, right? You are trying to see what you really want to do. You're trying to see your future self. You're trying to connect. You're also can have conversation with your with people that you couldn't have, or with people that you thought like were out of your league in some sense, your parents, your elders, your siblings, your, like, there's like you're at that center point in some sense of the civilization, or the, how would I say it, even the nation, right? Because youth is that stage where, like, you can become anything, right? It's not like you have, like, obviously you can say that a good part of you has been built right till 25 or 24, but still, like, you can still like improve, or like, uh how, I don't really want to say improve, but work on a lot of things, right? Explore a lot of things, because, and because life is also about exploration, about curiosity, about engaging with what interests you, what beckons you, what calls you, right? And there's a challenge, there's something like, I would not like motivating, right? It what keeps you going, and that's the beauty of life in some sense. Like, it's so random, it's so like beautiful, but at the same time scary, to have it, to live it, to experience it every moment, every day. Like, obviously people can have monotonous life, people can have a very routineful, robotic life, right? But still, like, if they actually have that perspective where they can actually take a shift and see things from new angle, where they can integrate some information, where they can see, where they can allow themselves even to have a new look on anything, right? It could be anything, could be art, could be music, could be your day-to-day life, just like your fucking room, right? You can look up your room and you can see, like, you can make some changes and it totally feels different. You can watch a new movie and you can change, right? You can watch a painting and it totally like blows you out, and you can meet a person and they have something to tell to you that you never thought, and like, it all could happen. Like, you just need to go, or maybe like you can just look inward, right? I read this, sorry for this, I read this Jung quote, right? Jung had some brilliant things to say about yourself, I would say. Not yourself, but yourself, right? He talks about this self part. There's this part of you, that real you, that that you can only interact or engage when you look inward in some sense. Now, obviously, I'm not really trying to here impose that only by looking yourself, only by looking inward you can find that self, but it's something very integral to know, to be become aware of what you are, what you actually what your core is basically, because you can be with all the people in the world, and when you come to your home, when you come to your place, when you are on your bed at night and by yourself, right? You think about what you are and how do you approach life and how do you see yourself when you see in the mirror, right? All these things, like you have this, like so what happens now? Sorry for this. And I've started writing a lot recently, a lot, right? And I have actually realized that in my writings what I'm trying to do is like trying to have a conversation with myself, right? It's like, it's not that, it's the self that I'm talking about, that Jung talked about, right? And I might be wrong here, like, because I have not read Jung that much to that extent that uh, I can lay out what the self Jung talked about, but it's something approximate to that idea. So what happened? Let's say I'm writing something, and it's something very deep. It's something that I really want to engage with, right? It's like maybe a problem, because I usually write when I'm actually having a trouble or going through some crisis that I obviously go through in my daily life, not daily life, but something that I have been wrestling recently in the past month, let's say, or something like that, right? So I wrote a lot basically. I never wrote that much, right? It's not a lot, but still, like, the most I have written in a month, right? Obviously compared to the my whole life, right? So I was writing and writing and writing, and in writing, what I have noticed that it's something like you are there, so you are there, your present you, right? Your current self, right? In some sense, you, right? Psychologist or Jung or psychoanalyst will say that the ego part of you, right? The Freud, Sigmund Freud talked about it very in depth in some sense, when he said that there is an ego part of you, that is what operates, that is what functions, that actually integrates your uh, ideal part as well as your desires part, right? The id and the superego. So what I'm trying to do when I'm writing is that my current self, my ego, is trying to have a conversation with myself, right? With the self that I'm talking about. The self is something that I think maybe, or obviously I'm just like not really firm on that, but this is what I'm like thinking. I'm thinking out loud here, right? This is my edge of my thinking. So the self here is the part of me, the voice in me that calls me, right? The people, some people say it's a conscience. It's something that it it's something that gives you the uh, it's a compass in some sense of right and wrong. And obviously the right and wrong is not like the truthful right and wrong, but it's your own sense of right and wrong, right? That whenever you do something that you know you should not do it, and obviously like you might have your reasons of not doing that, but still if you look in a backward, if you don't look retrospectively, and you have a sense of guilt, shame, or negative emotion, then you know that you did not do what you should do, right? You knew that the thing that you're gonna do was wrong, but you still did it. And people go through this, how would I say this, they have this battle with themselves every day in some sense. Obviously they don't realize it, they realize it later when it hits them. But we take decisions every time, like we are always judging, is it the right thing to do, is it the right thing to do, should I do it or not, should I avoid it, should I say no, should I say yes, right? All these things, like it's a very ethical and I would say even practical uh, engagement or battle, let's say, that you are making all the time, these micro decisions, right? And obviously I'm not saying that every time what are you doing is right or wrong, but I'm talking about the grand major things that you have done in your life that you knew were wrong, but you still did it. So that's the part, that's the voice, that's the self that I'm talking about, that the voice of that self, right? And when I'm writing that, when I'm trying to have a conversation with the self, right, I'm just trying to lay out my current feelings and trying to have a conversation with my current self, with the self, right? With the self, and the self is nothing but, it's like I've told you, like this, the voice, right? And the self is also the potential, you can say, of yourself. It's the ideal, let's say, that you don't really have a good articulated knowledge about, but it's something that you actually admire. It could be anything. It could be a part of your father, it could be a part of your mother, it could be a part of your sibling, it could be a part of your neighbor, right? It could be anyone that you find interesting, find admirable, right? You find it, oh, that's the thing, I like that about that person. I like that he greeted me very politely, right? I really like it when they shared something vulnerable with me, right? All these things actually, you find it in those instances. Oh, this is good, this is really, like, I really like it, right? And the self is just an amalgamation, let's say, of all those things that you admire. And it's not something only, I'm not like just talking about the admiration here, I'm also talking about the about the proper way or the proper model to act, right? Because if you see, in religion in some sense uh, is a human effort to make that self, right? What should be the mode of living, what should be the proper way to conduct your life, what should we look up to, right? Everything, every religion has that form, right? It could be formless, it could be form, it could have a form, like, doesn't depend. But every religion has an idea that they have their own philosophy, that we should live our life to that, like that model, right? We should follow it, we should preach it, we should, like, religiously or dedicatedly bow down, right? All these things are just that part of that self, right? And when I'm writing, I'm just trying to have that conversation with myself, with the self, right? And it really, like, it's just brilliant, right? Whenever I'm having trouble, I just say, okay, these are the issues that I'm having, and I think about that issues, and the self in some sense also answers, right? So this is what I just wanted to say that this is why I think I found writing very helpful. Because what happens now, here the real problem, you are here, right? You are living your life, you will have a very long life. Yeah, you will realize it, like, you will realize it when you are a young man or woman, or in your adult life, right? That life is a big long, like, journey, right? And it's not something that will end, like, obviously, god forbid that, like, it could happen at any instance. Obviously, that's the spontaneity of life. But even, like, from that instance, like, nobody lives, well, people live their life like that, but still, that's not the point. My point is that life is a big journey. You have things to do, you have things to look up to, you have dreams, you have aspirations, you have ambitions, right? You have all these things, and you're trying to live your life from those future timelines. Obviously it's not like you should have a spontaneity, you should not be like totally uh, I would not say slave, but totally live your life on those terms that you will live the life that you want to live in a future timeline. You also should live in some sense to the present as well, but that's not the point. My point is that when you realize that a life is a big journey itself, and you are only you will get to know what life you will live, right? You can have all the conversation with your people, you can have interaction with every friend, you can uh, have every psychiatrist, every psychologist, and all of these things. Like you can have these conversations with people and interactions, but still, like at the end of time, at the end, at the final analysis, like you will only you will know what kind of life you have lived, right? And when I write, right, and writing and writing is what makes me share that part, right? I cannot share everything that I have done to anyone, because well, nobody has the time in some sense, and also like it's not practical. Like of course I can share a lot of things, but there are things that I really that I maybe like cannot share, or maybe people don't find it like don't find a safe space to share it. They try to generalize, they try to, you know, manifest in different forms of actions, right? It could be art, it could be music, it could be films, it could be writing, it could be poems. Like there are multiple ways. Like people playing sports are in some sense expressing that part, right? There, it's like every form of action in some sense you can say is an expression of your unset life, right? And that's the beauty. That's the beauty. And writing helped me in that sense, right? When like obviously people don't write only because of that, but when people suffer or when people are in some problem, they try to have conversation with their self, right? When they write, and I found it brilliantly, right? So I don't know like why I had this like huge 10 or 15 minutes conversation on why should people write or why I did write. But I think I wanted to just lay out the point that even at 24 I have things to express, and I know that obviously I will be wrong at multiple layers, but still I think I should try and express those things. Because what happens now, you can have in some sense, you know, people obviously not many people come and express those things and share those things, but still I have observed that uh, by putting it out, by showing what you really think, by thinking it out loud on the screen, like you try to show that your true self to everyone. In some sense you try to interact, you try to, and in some sense also people, you will find people who are also thinking on that same lines, and then you can share lots of things with them, and then you can talk about lot of ideas, and then you can build a lot of things. So that's what I'm interested in. I'm just interested in having conversations with people. I'm interested in having ideas, I'm interested in talking things and a lot of things, right? And you know, we live in such a great, we live in interesting times, I would say. Not great times because things are rough also, right? With all these wars and whatnot, but still it's pretty interesting. Like, you know, the age of information, the age of exploration, the age of uh, ideas, right? So all these things are gonna blow the world, right? We will be like so, we're looking at this time and thinking what was really happening, because after all this like supercomputers and AI and war and, you know, foreign politics and whatnot, geopolitics, and you know, it's like things are actually happening. Like you used to read things. So back in the times World War II happened, and then Cold War came, and you know, you used to think like, I used to think like what people were thinking back in the times when, you know, Soviet Union and USA were at their throat, right? At each other's throat. But now you're seeing everything in the, in real life, right? How things are unfolding, and how it's in some sense it's also a cycle in some sense, because you see that different kind of dynamics are taking place. The old, you know even if you see that uh, people are really people don't really learn, right? They really have this I would not say selfish, but this urge to have power, to have control, to have to impose their thinking, to impose their philosophy, right? You are seeing that struggle, right? You are seeing that battle right now, that people are at that limit, right? You see the world leaders at that limit, that everyone have their agenda, and they just want to impose that on different societies, on different cultures, on different nations. And they could be very aggressive with obviously USA and Israel and all these things, right? So like it's a fun fucking timeline to be a part of, and I don't know where will it go, and I don't even know like why I started talking about geopolitics, but I think this is the talk of the town, and why not, right? Also, like obviously, I had to say a lot of things about other things as well. So what I'm really interested to talk about today, as I already talked a lot about till now, but still I'm interested in talking about, let's say, listening, right? And I have recently realized that listening is such a crucial part, right? Listening is such a important aspect of human connection and human empathy and human interaction. Because what happens now, you have a life, right? You have a life, and you have people around you. You have relations, you have a community, you have interactions with people on everyday level. And why? So okay, I will give you a little bit of tangent. So there was this psychologist called Carl Roger, and Roger came up with this idea that therapeutic communication, or a conversation, or a therapist who is a good listener could actually heal his her patients, right, in a therapeutic conversation, right, just by actually listening to what they are up to, right? And you might think why, right? Because people listen to each other, obviously, right? They try to analyze what the other people are up to, and then they give their opinions and their ideas and their uh, solutions, let's say, right? But I don't think so the other people is looking for solutions in any sense. I think if a person comes to you with their problems and say, okay, this is what I'm going through, right, what they really want is not solutions. Like obviously solutions do help, but what they are looking for is a space that they can walk around in some sense, right? And because what happens, it's not obviously that everyone writes, that everyone express themselves, right, that everyone engages in different form of activities to express their deepest troubles and struggles and desires and uh, negative emotions. But the primary form of communicating their negative emotion is through interacting with people. And when they are interacting with people, when they are having a negative emotion, or they are low in some sense, they want to have this space where then they can actually open themselves. And it's not like that you have a friend, or you have a person, or you have a partner, right? You just go and tell them everything. It's like you say something very vulnerable. Obviously it will not be that vulnerable in the first stages. You say something very little bit of vulnerable, and you see their reactions and what they are up to. And then you if the response of the other person, could be a therapist, it could be a friend, it could be a parents, it could be anyone. If you find that they are not being judgmental, or in some sense not imposing their own form of agenda, or in some sense they're actually care to listen to your problems, but like they actually trying to understand what you are up to, then you try to reveal your whole issues with them, right? Then you're trying to actually take little steps. and you're not trying to like fabricate your problems. You're actually trying to communicate them what the issue actually is. And even like I have experienced that to some level, right? That whenever, like, let's say I'm having conversation, let's say I'm trying to have a deep talk with anyone, right? It's not like I will say them everything at first. Like, I will try to say something and then watch their reaction, and then try to like in some sense build the things around that first piece of information. And when I totally reveal what I'm trying to think, then maybe like I can have a sense, okay, they actually listened. And maybe I also feel lighter in some sense because I've actually shared a very vulnerable part with the other person. So that is something that I really find interesting, and I think that is what makes a trustful relation, right? You're trying to see, like, can you trust the other person? Can you try to share what you really think with the other person? Because what happens now, if you don't have a person, or if you're engaging with a person who is not really interested in listening, you just listening for the sake of speaking, or uh, for the sake of, in some sense, a performative uh, relation, let's say, or empathy, then you will not really speak what you really think. You will have a fabricated story. You will have a, you will have, you will mold your stories and your thought process and your what you're thinking. And because obviously, like, it I'm not like complaining everything to the person who is listening, but obviously they have not yet learned how to listen. And it's not like I'm putting blame on people, right? People have other issues, like, obviously not everyone can listen properly. I also really think that if people just start listening to everyone's issues and their life and their problems, and then we don't really need therapists, we don't really need psychologists, we don't really need, you know because like the community itself, the people around you, or the people will take care of their, like, of each other, right? Because they are so interested, or those they are so understanding of other people, they just really want to help them. So I think this is what I learned recently a lot, right? And you know can I say, like, I'm a good listener? I don't know. Like, there have been times when I actually not uh, being a good listener. I thought maybe I went out of the way, maybe I just wanted to say things, right? Because what happens, like, uh, when the other person is sharing something very difficult to you, like, it depends, like, how you are trying to see that situation. Are you trying to relate that difficult part of them with your life, or you're just giving them support to just reveal everything that they are feeling? Because I've seen that with people, right, who have not a, I would not say a good relation, but people who lie to their parents, right? And it's not like I have not lied to my parents. I have lied with them a good amount, but I still have a relatively decent relation with them, saying uh, what I really believe, right? And obviously, it comes at a cost. Like, it comes with a tension, but still, like, I have tried to be truthful to my parents, to people of my family, right? Because maybe, like, and obviously hats off to my parents for that, for giving me that safe space, that zone where I actually can build trust, where I actually don't have to say a lie, where actually they listen to my problems, and obviously thoughtful give a thought to my problems, and give a good solution in some sense, or trying to interact what I'm thinking and how should I approach those issues, right? So it's really something beautiful, right? And obviously, people who are not good listener, obviously I'm not trying to like throw them under the pit, but they might have huge issues with their childhood. They did not able to form good relations with their parents, with their siblings, and that's the reason maybe like they couldn't form that trust that was needed to actually uh, you know care and to empathize and uh, to actually understand other people, right? It's a huge problem. I just finished this podcast, right? uh, Mr. Mate, I think Gaber Mate. I think it's called. It does. It actually is not called Gaber, but I think I'm forgotten. I forgot the pronunciation of that person, but it's like Dr. Gaber Mate. You can find him. It's a brilliant it's not a psychologist, but it's like he's a physician. But he talks about trauma. He talks about how how people's issues, people related issues related to mental health, issues related to ADHD, uh, challenges related to could be anything. Relationship problems could be not unable to say truth to others, unable to form cohesive thoughts, unable to have a good career, unable to um, find your passion. It could be anything. Like they all, not all, but in some sense, a major portion of those problems are can be like, in some sense, can be uh, how would I say it? Like the trauma that you have in your childhood, right? Those all problems are a manifestation of that unsolved trauma. So he talks about this brilliantly in that conversation, and obviously he talks about that in his books as well. I have not read the book, but I've seen him good enough now. I'm still obviously watching him a lot recently and trying to figure out what the person is thinking. So he's just basically saying that the unresolved trauma that you have in your childhood actually creates all the problem in your life. Obviously it's not every problem, but they are the that's the main source. Like you have this trauma in your life at such a young age, when you are so vulnerable, when you had when you literally, like, you're just born, and now you're like 2 year old or 3 year old and 1 year old, and you don't know a shit, right? And the people around you are gonna take care of you. Like they have this immense responsibility to take care of you, because you cannot do anything. Like you're just like you just like learned how to smile, even, like, right? You just learned how to walk, and you just learned how to say things, like. And people around you, like, they play such an important role to foster your development, to connect, to actually make a model in you that's compatible with the real world, that makes you sustainable, that makes you grow, right? And if you have a traumatic experience in your childhood, let's say, it could be anything. It could be a sexual abuse, or it could be a physical assault, or humiliation, or you might have get picked on by people in the school, or you might have been bullied, and it could be endless things, right? And I don't know, everyone, I don't really think everyone, but many people have gone through these traumas, and in some sense they suppress those emotions, right? Those emotions of shame, those emotions of negative emotions, or like anger, or rage, or all these things that they uh, that in some sense were evoked by those interactions. And when they couldn't find to express them, right? Maybe like because their parents were not trustful enough, or like they were fearful of their parents, or they thought that their parents gonna, like, not gonna like what happened to them, and maybe like beat them, or maybe like did not will not respond positively. So all this trauma, like all this negative emotion, all this wound, in some sense, you don't really heal it, you don't really work on it, and it just builds up. It builds everything that you do in your life, because when you're 25, when you're 30, when you're 35, when you realize, okay, I had this traumatic experience, I had this childhood, I had this like instant, I had this like experience once, right? And it shaped everything. Like it shaped my every action, it shaped my thought process. It has a great influence, it has a big influence on how I live my life. So all of these things actually, you understand. Maybe like when you're 30, some people do it at the age of 50. Some people never ever get aware of their trauma, because it could there could be multiple reasons. Maybe like they're not privileged enough to go through that process. Maybe they are not educated enough. Maybe like they have not find people with like people who can actually listen to their problems, who can actually ask them how was their childhood, how was their beginning, how was their school life, right? All these things actually add up, and all these things actually play a huge role, right? And you know so the Dr. Mate that I was talking about, so he talked about his traumas as well, that maybe at age 40 or 50, even after you know being so educated and coming, though obviously he came from a situation, basically Holocaust was taking place, Nazi Germany, when he was just 1 year old. And so he had a very rough childhood, obviously. And even at, I think, 50 or 60, he realized, okay, that was my trauma, and he tried to solve it and try to understand why the emotion, why the thought process, what were his habits that he found not right, what were that those trauma was the source of all those emotions, all those sense of insecurity, inferiority, shame, guilt, anger, everything in some sense. So I really find his work very interesting, right? I highly recommend it, to be honest, right? And even I actually am trying to think about my traumatic events, right? And it's not like I have had a rough childhood, right? I maybe got bullied here and there, maybe at times I could not express my emotions. But it's not like I had a very bad childhood, but there's still things that you maybe like can find, okay, this is maybe the problem why I act like how I act like. And it's pretty interesting, like you can analyze your traumas, at the same time you can analyze other people's traumas. Like you can analyze your parents' traumas, because like as you know, like our parents generation, my parents generation were basically were in their were adult or maybe like child when they were like 70, in when it was 70s or 80s, so you can understand like how things were like that, right? And why they are what they are right now, right? Maybe like they will never understand their trauma, maybe they will never able to understand what happened to them in their early years, right? So like maybe in some sense also it's my responsibility, or the to actually help my parents, right, understand, okay, that was your trauma, like you should like think about that. And I will try to have a conversation with them around there. But my whole point is that like you can think about people, like by asking them how was their childhood, and they will tell you. And then you maybe like can you know uh, ask them what were the difficult moments that they faced, what was the problems, did they ever get bullied or beaten up, or like why do they lie all the time. Like all these things are pretty, like they make sense when you actually understand it from a very macro level, or even like from a very depth level, right? So yeah, that is pretty cool. Also, like you know what I was gonna tell you, I don't know, I think I forgot. Yeah, I think like this is good, this is good, this is good. I think we can end here, because I don't know, it's like 44 minutes have been passed already. It's 2, right? I have to go to the gym tomorrow. My friend's gonna kill me if I wake up late. So I think this should end, and thanks for listening. If you have stayed till this late, right? Thank you. Bye bye.